one best-selling
have been nominated and won so many awards throughout your careers.
She has a wealth of experience interviewing and consulting with well-renowned figures, celebrities, and corporations. Nadia speaks on how to get people to like you, trust you, and want to do business with you.
Over the last few weeks, the entire world has been monitoring the treatment of your grandfather, Nelson Mandela. And my job was to introduce it and provide.
With topics like leveraging the power of your personal presence, networking for success, and lighting the fire. Nadia Bilchik.
And it's not very often that I get to speak to a Viscountess. Yes, today it's all about Queen Elizabeth II, and I'm delighted to be joined by a royal expert, part of nobility herself, Julie. We can say that, right? You married into a noble family, so you are actually Viscountess Julie Montagu, and you are the daughter-in-law of the 3rd Earl of Sandwich. So first of all, before we start talking about the Queen, tell us about you and how an American woman married into a family of British noble blood.
Well, it's a question I do get asked quite frequently because, to be honest, there's not very many Viscountesses around that are American these days. In fact, I might be one of the only ones in the British nobility. But, you know, I met my husband, Nadia, when I hadn't a single clue about the nobility and this aristocracy and these families that existed. You know, my recollection of when I met my husband was that he was just a normal person like you and me, you know, with a name, Luke Montagu. And it wasn't until 3 months into our relationship that he actually paid for something, and his credit card said Viscount Hinchingbrook. And for me, first of all, I didn't even know what a Viscount was. So let's just put that out there. I had absolutely no idea. So I actually thought it was like a company name. So that it was, you know, really a company name. And then he had to explain to me his family's illustrious past. And in particular, of course, that he would one day be the Earl of Sandwich. And of course, that opened up a whole range of other questions saying, you know, the sandwich as in the sandwich that we eat today? And he said, yes, my ancestor, in one sense, invented the sandwich. The 4th Earl of Sandwich was really the phrase sandwich, or the word sandwich, I should say, was coined after the 4th Earl of Sandwich. So it was, I had to get my head around this whole new history and family that I was marrying into.
And I have loved watching your YouTube on looking at historical places in England, and even times where you actually are with the Earl of Sandwich. So just special. And if people want more of that, you can look up Julie at juliemontagu.com. There's lots about British royalty and British nobility and beautiful homes that I know you've had a big part in restoring. But getting to the Queen, since Thursday of last week, you have been very busy talking about the Queen. And what I wanted to share today was, yes, the Queen is by no means perfect, nor is the monarchy perfect. But as a professional speaker who does a lot of work around leadership development, I wanted to talk about what we can learn from the Queen. So you have been talking about this, but let's look at what's positive and why we look at the Queen as an exemplary leader.
Well, I mean, this is wonderful to be talking about this, and in particular, of course, focusing on the Queen and why she was such a good leader. One of the things that really stands out for me, and I think for many people, is that the Queen was able to keep the monarchy intact throughout these 70 years, despite the British Empire shrinking, despite her children and grandchildren being splashed across the front pages due to scandal and gossip. But, you know, if polls are to be believed, the majority of Brits still believe that the country should keep its monarchy. And because of this affection for the Queen, she was always able to rise above. She never I think this is a big point, Nadia. She never reacted. And sometimes I think that in the world of that we're living in right now, with social media and so many opinions, reactions can really cause divisions. And for the Queen, she was able to humbly put out these statements, whether that was about Harry and Meghan Brexiting, and the role that they wanted to take, sort of a half in, half out role within the monarchy. She was able, in one sense, to kindly say, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. You're either in or you're out. Or even around, we know with the Oprah Winfrey interview, that was quite a shock for the royal family. And there were a lot of allegations made there. And instead of reacting to it and causing more division, the Queen simply put out, "We love Harry and Meghan. Recollections may vary, but we will always support them." And for me, it's that lovely Michelle Obama statement, "When they go low, we go high." And the Queen has always done that.
So looking at that moment and wondering, I mean, do you have any inside information about how she really felt? Because one thing that commentators have been saying over the last week is you never really knew how she felt. So I wonder, is there conversation amongst the inner circles about how did she really feel? What do you think, Julie? What do you really think about when Harry and Meghan went to live in Santa Barbara?
The Queen, as you know, and as you just so beautifully put, holds her cards close to her. But we do know from statements time and time again that the Queen is about duty. And so duty will always trump anything else. And it will trump, in one sense, family. We can look at Prince Andrew, for an example. He was stripped of, he was stripped of being a senior working royal. And so it's for the Queen, it's if you do not set the right example in Prince Andrew's case, or you want to try to negotiate your role, no, duty is, and she's been able to run this institution and run this machine for 70 years throughout these scandals, and still become and was this the most popular monarch we have ever seen. Her ratings in the polls are well and above 90%. So no matter what her grandchildren and children did, remember 3 of her 4 children are divorced. There were a lot of scandal. We know what's happened with Harry and Meghan. She still was able to maintain this huge popularity, not just across the UK, but around the world. And I think it's because she doesn't react. She doesn't go into the fighting and the opinions, and she puts out a statement and then it's done with.
So what did people in royal inner circles feel? Or is there something people don't discuss? I mean, we are living in America. I am South African living in America, and South Africans are very interested in the Queen. Not saying all, please, we have to be very politically correct when we discuss it, because there is controversy and well-founded, but we're talking about the positive aspects. What can we learn from her? And I'm just curious, as somebody who is living in England, when the Harry Meghan situation arose, how did you feel about it? What did your family think?
There was sadness all around the UK, absolutely. Including myself, and including many other families of nobility, including the British public. Because let's remember, Harry was, I don't want to say the favorite, but out of Princess Diana's children, he was considered the cheeky one. He would get out of line, and he was, in one sense, thought of as most like his mother, breaking the rules, asking the questions, going out on his own. And people really loved that and respected that. And I think for everybody, when Harry and Meghan decided to leave and start their own life overseas, it was a sadness because of also the love for the people's princess, Princess Diana. And the connection that we have seen throughout these years prior to Harry and Meghan leaving, the connection and the bond between William and Harry. And it was a real sadness. And of course, there were many people who thought, oh, this American has come in just like Wallis Simpson. You know, Wallis Simpson came in and caused, in one sense, the King Edward VIII, Prince of Wales, but King Edward VIII to abdicate. Therefore, we were able to have Queen Elizabeth's father, King George VI. But, this American divorcee causing problems, he's abdicated. And now look at, obviously Harry didn't abdicate, but some people deemed it as an abdication in itself. He's leaving the country to set up shop, in America. And the Brits were they were hurt by that, definitely hurt by that.
But it's interesting that we're looking at life and leadership lessons, and the Queen, while maybe deeply disappointed, still put on a facade of saying, he is my grandchild, I will support him, and took the high road. So that really is an important lesson. The other lesson that I think is an interesting one is that she does and did apologize. So going back to Princess Diana's death in 1997, and I remember it so well because, Julie, that is the year we moved from Johannesburg, South Africa to Atlanta, Georgia. And I was having a birthday party, and I think everybody remembers where they were when they heard about Princess Diana. And it's hard to believe that that is, 26 years ago?
25 years ago. Oh my, Harry and Meghan, or Harry and William, just walking behind the Queen's coffin, almost 25 years to the date that they walked behind their mothers. Their mothers was September 6th, 1997.
Right, 1997. So the Queen was criticized for how she handled the announcement. So tell us more about that. And then also how she gracefully and graciously apologized, which I think is another important life lesson.
Of course, it's a life lesson. And that is what the Queen, she has such dignity, dignity and honor, but also able to say in her own words, right, making what was perceived as a wrong a right in the eye of the public. Now, we know that she was there at Balmoral trying to protect the boys. They were 12 and 15. They had just lost their mother. And this had never, I think, let's remember, when you look at these situations, you're thinking family first. Family is going to come first. But yet there was this outcry and outpouring of love and support for Princess Diana that nobody really expected on the scale that we saw it. And the Queen was able to, I do believe, quickly to realize that, right, I am now being, I'm splashed across the front pages of the British newspapers in a negative way. And how she redeemed herself, and this is what's extraordinary about the Queen, is when the coffin of Princess Diana passed, the Queen bowed her head. And for the Queen to bow.
You get very tearful because that's, she said, and what was her line? She said she was a very talented and gifted person about Diana.
And she gave her a state funeral.
Yes.
So
yes,
the Queen has a way of making things right, because let's remember, she's about service to the people. So on the one hand, she came in, she protected her grandsons at the very beginning, but then she also quickly realized, I have a service to the people. And Diana was so well loved. She was the people's princess, state funeral, but no one told the Queen to bow to Diana. Nobody, only others like us bow to the Queen. The Queen does not bow to anybody else. And here she did. And she bowed to Princess Diana's coffin.
And that was such an important moment in bringing the country together, and she understood the power that had on the reputation of the monarchy. Because that's something else people have been saying, Julie. She understood that the world had changed. I mean, even her tea with Paddington Bear and the things she did when the Olympic Games came to London. So talk about that, and just the ability to adapt, because I keep going, we're obsessed with the pomp and the ceremony, and it's very beautiful, but what are we learning from this?
Right. And that's a fair point, Nadia. And we can see that the Queen has absolutely, she evolved over these 70 years. She sent out her first tweet in 2014 and signed it Elizabeth R. As you said before, she participated, a huge stunt, if you like. I mean, obviously they had stunt doubles, but with James Bond, Daniel Craig for the 2012 London Olympics, and her 3 corgis as well. So she's always been able to evolve with the times. Let's remember, she started to give her Christmas address every year and was able to broadcast that. She looked to TV in order to help to, and radio, in order to help to modernize the royal family. And that's what she did. Looking at the pandemic, and I don't know how much this was reported other than in the UK, but she of course broadcast a message for all of us who were locked up in our homes, saying, we will meet again. You will meet your loved ones again.
And beautiful, right? We will meet again, which was echoing of the Second World War and so many different things. So I love that, we will meet again.
Yes.
So in terms of you as somebody who is not observing it, I say we're observing it really from a distance. I think you're observing it closer. Your father-in-law, who's the 3rd Earl of Sandwich, did he ever meet the Queen? Did he ever get to know her? What does his generation feel about the Queen?
Yeah, so I am going to say, Nadia, my father-in-law is the 11th Earl of Sandwich. That's how far back we go.
Okay, the 11th Earl of Sandwich. That's even more remarkable.
Yeah. So what's rather extraordinary about this is that the reason that the family I married into, the Montagu family, was given this title, the Earl of Sandwich, is because the last time we had a King Charles was King Charles II. So King Charles II was brought back from exile by the first Earl of Sandwich before he was given that that peerage. We call it a peerage over here. The Earl of Sandwich. He was Edward Montagu. He was head of the Admiralty, and he was able to take his ship over to Holland, bring Charles II back for the restoration. So remember, prior to that, King Charles I was executed. It was the first time we didn't have a monarchy over that period of time. And then there was this secret mission to bring Charles II back and to reinstate the monarchy. And that is why our family was given this title. And Sandwich was a great naval port. So it's in Kent. If people ask why Sandwich, it was a great naval port at that time. So of course he would choose that name, that title, I should say, Earl of Sandwich. And how extraordinary is now we have the king, the new king, which is Charles III. But so we are one of the oldest families of nobility in this country. That's how far back we go. And for me, my father-in-law is still one of the 92 peers who were voted in to stay in the 90s. He's in the House of Lords. And I think, for that generation, they have seen so much themselves. But of course, as we know, the only queen that, most people in the UK have known, or the only monarch that most people in the UK have known, has been the Queen herself. So we're moving on to this, a new period that many people have never seen before. But for me, it's quite extraordinary. As the American, I come in on one side, Nadia, as being fascinated by the royal family, like so many Americans, and yet I've married into this, most noble family, and I've had to really, to be honest, sort of up my learning curve, and up the game of learning about British history, and in particular the monarchy.
And your father-in-law, the 11th Earl of Sandwich, when he got the news that Queen Elizabeth II had died, did you speak to him? What was his response?
Absolutely. Well, what we did, that we have a family estate. It's in Dorset. It's a historic house that is, of course, nowadays open to the public. People can come in. We have thousands of visitors.
With your own Downton Abbey, Julie.
Yeah. With what?
How does it?
Come
gonna
visit.
write that. Tell me
Come
so that if
visit.
people are where do they find out more? What's the website?
So they can just go to Mapperton, MAPPERTON.com. We luckily have sort of the accolade of the nation's finest manor house. It's a Tudor manor house, so it was first built in the 1540s, and it's an extraordinary house, and it has the Montagu/Sandwich collection inside the house. You can have house tours, you can go visit our garden.
But you live there as well.
Yes, we live there as well.
I mean, it's you know, for us, this is magical. I've looked at your website and I see American Viscountess, and it's very romantic.
It is. On the one hand, Nadia, some people say, oh, you're living the fairy tale. But of course, times have changed. And, the aristocrats, we can't just live like they did in Downton Abbey. In fact, nobody does.
Correct. When you watch Downton Abbey, and remember, I am South African. I grew up in apartheid South Africa. People still live, Julie, in South Africa with help. I'm glad to say apartheid was dismantled, is no longer, but there is still an element of servitude. I mean, when my friends go back to South Africa and see the servant relationship or the help, it's domestic assistance, It's changed, but it is something for Americans, it's an enigma. It's something, but for you, I mean, do you live in a home with domestic assistance? You have a butler.
No, no. Oh my, do we have a butler? No, absolutely not.
Definitely has a lot and had a lot, and Charles will have a lot
of course.
People, because that's part of what it is, right? Now, I heard that William and Kate had moved into something smaller so they could have a more normal life and be close to the Queen, and now, of course, they're moving. How much is their life going to change?
Well, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, and now I'll call them the Prince and Princess of Wales, I think their life is going to change quite significantly because we will see them much more on these royal engagements, elevating charities that they feel need to be elevated, and their platform can help with that. We know that we know that King Charles III is 73 years old. He's had 73 years to prepare for this. He will be, in one sense, in my view, acting as an extension for his mother's legacy and to that older generation. But I think many people believe that for this monarchy to survive, it needs to definitely involve much more the Prince and Princess of Wales. And we've seen that over the past year, after the Queen, with mobility issues, started to give up a lot of her responsibilities to King Charles III, as well as the new Prince and Princess of Wales. We started to see, Charles and William doing more things together, Charles, Camilla, William and Catherine doing more things together. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be right on this. We're going to see a lot more of the four of them doing things together, because you'll have this bridge in order to make sure that the monarchy survives by bridging the older generation with the younger generation. The monarchy needs the younger generation. Absolutely. And
have really good public relations people. I mean, clearly there's a team orchestrating things. So when you look, a couple of things I want to unpack here. Number one, and when I was at CNN, I did a segment, and I'm hoping my producer, when he edits this, so you're not going to see the live version, shows the piece around why the Queen didn't abdicate. Because people kept saying, why didn't she abdicate? And I'm going to show you the CNN segment on that. But right now you've got a situation where there must be smart people who are saying, and of course it's Princess Catherine, you've said it correctly. We refer to them as William and Kate, but you are the expert, so we knew. But they say to her, Kate isn't as queenly as Catherine or as princess-like. So all of these little nuances, this is a business, this is branding. And smart people are saying this is what you should do on a very deeply personal level. Julie, how do you think it impacts somebody like Princess Catherine, Kate? Do you think she's delighted, excited, or do you think it is huge amounts of pressure, or both?
She's absolutely ready for this role. You know, as Prince William said in his statement to the Queen, you've been able to get to know my, been there for my wife for 20 years, been able, you know, so we know this relationship with William and Catherine, you know, it's been longer than, of course, their marriage together. They've been together for 20 years. The Queen knew Catherine for 20 years. She has been absolutely primed for this, and they will have, of course, their PR team around them. We have seen, though, recently, Nadia, you know, when they went on their Caribbean tour, in order to represent the Queen for the Platinum Jubilee, there were a few missteps there. There were absolutely a few missteps, some not very flattering photos that came out, but immediately as they were flying back.
One, not particularly flattering, because I want to talk about that. Which an example of?
So, you know, we saw, and it was really unfortunate, but they were at an event, and children at a nearby school ran to greet them, but there was a fence separating them, and their hands went through, and, you know, it just,
the visual of children's hands through a fence. Got it.
Yes.
Because one thing my mother always used to say, you know, the Queen never gets photographed while she's eating, darling, because, you know, you'll be at a table and people will be taking snapshots, and my mother always would go, you must never get photographed while eating. The Queen never does. You know, just something as simple as that. If you look at those royal portraits, they're always so beautifully orchestrated. But just, it is unflattering to be chewing while you're getting a picture taken.
Right. And it's certainly, you know, not a very good a photo when you're seeing, you know, that photo of school children through the fence. And
I mean, so basically everything, being aware that everything is being scrutinized. Even that walkabout, the famous walkabout last week, where you had Catherine and William, Princess Catherine and Prince William. Julie, we need to get it right. Yeah. And then you had Meghan and Harry. I mean, just the four of them together, I think people just breathed a sigh of relief. Whether you care deeply or don't care, there's something about a family coming together. So I think this is the best reality show out there right now, if we're really trying to understand people's obsession with it.
Of course, and that's what it is. And you know, we only get very, very small snippets. Who knows what's gone on behind closed doors or behind those palace doors? But we also know that, you know, all networks and royal commentators were told that it was going to be just the Prince and Princess of Wales who would be greeting the public at on the long walk at Windsor. We were not told that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Meghan and Harry, would also be arriving with them. And the reason we weren't told that is because it's now been reported that an hour before that meet and greet, if you like, to the public, the Prince and Princess of Wales extended an offer to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and asked them if they would like to come with them to greet the public, and they said yes. So this was very last minute. I mean, it's an olive branch.
Exactly. And, you know, again, I'm trying to understand why we're so unbelievably riveted by all of this. And even people who maybe are not royalists as such just still find the human aspect just completely fascinating. And then the fact that you've got, you know, this American actress and, you know, so many people, it's fascinating though, the kind of comments people make around, you know, how she got her claws into him. I mean, he is a man, he did have a say in it. Now, just on another note, so we look at the interview, the famous Harry-Meghan interview, correct titles, thank you for providing, which was so controversial. And going back to one of my mantras in the world of personal branding is everything you do and say communicates, everything. Was that a smart thing to do? Was it a stupid thing to do?
Well, I think it will be something that many people, including the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, might look back might look back on with regret. Throwing your family under a bus on a global scale because you are angry or you're bitter, and that, let's be honest, that is what's come out of that. I'm not here to disprove or prove the facts or the, what is right, what is sort of in a gray area, but I do believe that time heals. And a lot of times, if we don't, as families or even in a friendship, if we don't give it the time to heal, we may regret saying things. And in particular, in their case, they said things on a global scale. Because fast forward to where we are now, and we saw the four of them walking together, and I suspect there will be some thinking, Nadia, around whether or not Prince Harry's memoir should be coming out at the end of the year. Because if you saw that scene at Windsor Castle, and then 3 months from now, around Christmas, we're all, told to buy, or, Prince Harry comes out with his book, and it's another scathing book
royals, things
about
yes.
the royals. I think people will be really aggrieved by that, because they will say, why would you do this when the Queen has just died? Your brother's given you the olive branch. What is the point of this? And then there will be real questions, Nadia, of the intention around that book. What is the intention then? Is the intention to make money? And I think those are relevant questions to ask right now, if the book comes out.
The institution, I think that's what's come out, this remarkable institution of this, the pomp, the ceremony, but really, as you said, the Queen, just the enormous dignity, the lessons learned, the remarkable legacy that she leaves, and just structure, having, so much part of British culture, just having things that keep us unified. So that's just so many things that have come out of this, really. What was very interesting is I was watching a piece of the young new Prime Minister, Liz
Truss, yep.
And she must have been 20 at the time, and she's doing this very vociferous speech about how antiquated the royals are and how there's no place for monarchy in England. Juxtapose that with who she is now. I don't know. That's also interesting. Another twist.
Well, it is another twist. And I think, I'm not going to comment too much about the new Prime Minister, but I will say, if you do look very closely at her past, she has been known to sort of switch sides. So remember, she was a Remainer, and then is now supporting, well, we've already Brexited, and is now supporting sort of the Brexit process. So, I think sometimes people in politics, and I'll just use this as a broad term, in order to survive and be reelected and get high approval ratings, they can flip-flop. And that's the one thing that the Queen never did. And that's what makes her extraordinary. She
never, what's another nice word for, she never flip-flopped, she never wavered.
No, she never wavered.
That's quite an interesting quality, although she never wavered, but there was no rigidity with that. And I always think about that moment when Michelle Obama sort of puts her arm out to her, which is such a violation of protocol, right? And instead of her recoiling, she simply does it back. That's very gracious. That's a high level of emotional intelligence.
It is. And she was always gracious to people. And again, we can just go back to Princess Diana's death, and when the Queen went to go visit all of the flowers and the notes, and she was speaking to the public there. That is what's extraordinary about the Queen. The Queen never, and I do believe this, the Queen, and same with King Charles III, they never really looked at polls. King Charles III, hasn't changed his views on climate change or the environment. And he, was in one sense, when he was, it still is his sort of main passion, and something that he speaks about it with a lot of strength and passion around it. He hasn't changed his tune around that in order for people to like him or to be higher up in the polls. And that's the same thing with Queen. And I think it's, when we look back at the Queen and leadership, it's sticking with your gut and talking about the things that you believe in, and not doing this in one sense, I've got to sort of shift what I believe in, or the platform I want to use, or in order for people to like me. And we never saw the Queen do this.
Sense of values, strong sense of honor. Now, you bring up a point about Charles and climate change. So the other thing is, she was very non-committal and apolitical. He is said to have often written to government and have very, very strong points of view. Are we going to see less of his strong points of view if he's to emulate her apolitical nature?
Of course. And, climate change and the environment is such a hot topic right now. And when we look at the past 70 years of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her purpose was served in unifying and healing a broken nation, and really that's saying it, through times of war, through times of a pandemic, through times of political division. But perhaps a monarchy these days, Nadia, with a meaningful purpose like climate change, like the environment, is what it needs in order to stay relevant and to survive. It's a big question.
So it's interesting because CNN, Smakanish, one of the shows, did a poll recently, and they said, what's going to survive longer, the British monarchy or American democracy? Well, it was a bit of a horrifying result, but they said that they thought the British monarchy had a better chance. So as we wrap up, and I know it's been just such a wonderful opportunity to talk to you, because yes, I've seen snippets of you, but really having this conversation, what do you see happening? And we know the funeral of the Queen is on Monday the 19th, but what do you see playing out with King Charles? What are your thoughts, ideas, and hopes?
And I think that's the $1 million question, Nadia, is what happens next? What do we hope for? I think, right now, King Charles III is being incredibly well received. Jubilant crowds we saw on earlier this week, when the proclamations were made, the seals were stamped, the witness signatures, we saw that entire day happen for the first time ever live, and so that everybody across the world could witness this. But are we in a honeymoon period? Remember, the British press can be brutal. They can turn on you anytime. And just look at Meghan Markle. Her wedding to Prince Harry was a huge success for the most part, but quickly thereafter, the honeymoon was over, and so were the positive headlines. And, I think it's too early to say. Right now, we're mourning the Queen. You have this public all around the world in mourning, and yet at the same time in celebration of her 70 years, where she was able to keep calm and carry on.
That's the truth. Keep calm and carry on. And I have this quote behind me that I wanted to share. She says, I know of no single formula for success, but over the years, I have observed that some of the attributes of leadership are universal and are often about finding ways of encouraging people to combine their efforts, their talents, their insights, their enthusiasm, and their inspiration to work together. I mean, just such a lovely quote from her in terms of working together. And another quote that I really appreciated was, she said, grief is the price we pay for love. And I thought that was such a beautiful quote. And then I found out she was actually talking about her dogs. It's just,
yes.
And then just another one is the upward course of a nation's history is due in the long run to the soundness of heart and mind of its average men and women. So, Julie Montagu, your life has changed because you live in England. We're watching it. And it's been such a pleasure speaking to a Viscountess who has had to learn all about British nobility and royalty. And is there anything else that surprised you? How long have you been married now?
So for over 20 years, yeah.
So you are now are you accepted is the question.
Luckily for me, I have always been accepted. I married into just an absolutely extraordinary family who accepted me for who I am. And by the way, can I just say that, since I've been married now for about 20 years, I've never missed a Thanksgiving. And I can tell you, one of the things that my in-laws, the Earl and Countess of Sandwich, love every year is coming to Thanksgiving. And they ask me
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I do Thanksgiving. And even this year they said, please tell us you're having another Thanksgiving. And I said, absolutely. And, it's so they've really embraced the American in me. And of course, their grandchildren are half American, and they want to support that and make sure that they remember, their mother's roots, me. And of course, they have the English side to them as well. But it's wonderful for me to be able to raise 4 children in England, but remind them, hey, we've got 4th of July. Hey, we've got Thanksgiving. And these are the things that you must continue to do when you have children, if and when you have children yourself. So my in-laws have been absolutely extraordinary. The one things that we probably disagree on is the sandwich. And let me tell you why. I'm afraid I'm a vegetarian. So the 4th Earl of Sandwich, the sandwich that he had, which became the sandwich as we know it worldwide, was a piece of roast beef put in between 2 pieces of bread. And my father-in-law, it is still his favorite sandwich, but unfortunately for me, the vegetarian, it's not so much. I think I prefer almost an Italian sandwich with mozzarella, tomato, and basil, but he's fine with that.
Still a sandwich. Now, if people want to see Mapperton or hear more about the estates that you talk about, so they go on to mapperton.com.
Yes.
And if they want to Google you, it's the American Viscountess.
Yes, and I will also just mention here, Nadia, we have a huge YouTube channel. So if you just search Mapperton, which is over 100,000 subscribers, we're the only historic house in all of the UK documenting how hard it is to run a historic house, the ups and the downs. Every Saturday, we have an episode going out. And then my American Viscountess YouTube channel has over 100,000 subscribers. And I visit historic houses, other historic houses across the UK. So if you are a real Anglophile, go and come and watch us.
And what's so extraordinary about these buildings is they are so beautifully built, right? Just the construction without modern architecture, it never ceases to amaze me just how remarkable the building is and the construction.
Right. It's extraordinary because we think about these buildings being built in the Tudor period or the Elizabethan or even Jacobean period, and the carvings and the fabric of these buildings, both outside and inside. The interiors are Robert Adam design. When you see those houses, it's extraordinary to see them. And I'm lucky enough to be able to actually visit them and stay in the houses. So every time I visit a house, the homeowners allow me to stay in one of these absolutely astonishing bedrooms.
Because it is, don't you think Downton Abbey did so much for helping us get an idea of these beautiful historic houses? And of course, now there's Bridgerton and all of these beautiful, beautiful period pieces that showcase these things so magnificently. But I will say, Julie, whatever your thoughts are around the Queen or monarchy or imperialism, the pomp and ceremony, nobody does it like the British.
No, isn't it? It is, Nadia. What we have seen so far, it's absolutely extraordinary, and it's done with precision. It's just the beauty in it all is that it is the ceremony and the precision around it is you will never find that anywhere else in the world.
What can we expect in terms of the funeral?
You know, the in terms of the funeral, again, it's going to be again a very, very somber moment, not just here in the UK, but across the globe. We will see, you know, dignitaries coming in. I think it's 2,200 people are heading to Westminster Abbey, and we will see. I mean, it'll be interesting to see that guest list. We know that President Joe Biden is, of course, coming, to see all the people coming to give and pay their respects to the Queen, to mourn her. But I think on the other hand, to celebrate her, this 70-year reign, 96 years old, and her ability to unite, as I said earlier, and to heal, you know, a broken country, and even at times a broken world. And I hope that some of these dignitaries that are coming in will be able to take a page out of her book, and instead of, you know, wanting to make sure that they get enough votes and perhaps they're not speaking from their heart, maybe they will think twice and think, you know what, I'm just going to be me, speak from my heart, and be there to unify the people, just like the Queen did.
The Viscountess of Henchingbrooke, and I hope I'm saying it correctly, Julie Montagu. It has been such a pleasure just getting some insight into the royals, into Queen Elizabeth, and just thank you for sharing some of the lessons, the life and leadership lessons from Queen Elizabeth II. Julie Montagu, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Nadia.